Hello and welcome to Comic Book Herald's Krakin Krakoa, the series where I investigate the big questions and ideas and developments posed in the new X-Men event series, House of X and Powers of 10. Today I'll be asking the question, is Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, a mutant? We're going to go into the history of the character here on Krakin Krakoa. Again, this is Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com, where you can find reading orders and guides for all sorts of X-Men characters, as well as the actual House of X event reading order and Road to guide, and of course the Marvel Universe and many comic book series at large. But today, specifically, I want to go into whether or not Wanda Maximoff is a mutant. And I want to go into this because in the pages of House of X, we got this data chart here that very clearly calls out the decimation of the mutants. So it's on a page called Look What They've Done, right? And it's looking at mutant extinction level events. And the second item on this chart is decimation, mutant erasure by the pretender, Wanda Maximoff. And then, of course, you see her listed here again, her affiliation being with the Avengers, wiping out nearly 1 million mutants with her very famous claim, no more mutants. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I think a lot of people know Scarlet Witch in Marvel Comics history. In the event House of M, she, at the end of it, in this reality she had sort of created, she says the phrase "no more mutants." This is in 2005. That it leads to decimation, a period where mutants are wiped out to 198 mutants in the entire Marvel Universe that we know of, until, of course, some developments throughout the 2000s. But basically, the X-Men and mutant kind are recovering from this no more mutants, in addition to, of course, the other extinction-level events like Genosha and the Trask genocide in the pages of New X-Men. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about this language here, the pretender, Wanda Maximoff, and a little bit about why, is that right? Is she a pretender? Is she not even a mutant? And why does that matter? Now, if you haven't been reading House of X and Powers of 10, these Krakin Krakoa series, I tend to talk about events and potential ideas about what might happen. I think this one's going to be a little more spoiler-free than most because I'll be talking primarily about the history of Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, but of course, as always, there is that potential. Before I get going on the history of Scarlet Witch, if you like what I'm doing here, please consider liking and subscribing to the Comic Book Herald YouTube channel. Check out the podcast, Best Comics Ever. Or, as always, you can go on over to comicbookherald.com and find all of the content that we're putting up daily and have put up for close to about 8 years now. So thanks, everyone, as always, for the support of Comic Book Herald initiatives made possible by those of you supporting the site on patreon.com/comicbookherald. But okay, we've got the language here of the pretender, Wanda Maximoff. Let's talk about where Scarlet Witch begins. She begins, and this is not a page from the Silver Age, as you can tell by the art styling, but essentially, Wanda and her brother, Pietro, are recruited into the War of Mutant Kind by Magneto. This relationship is going to be very, very important as we talk, but when we are first introduced to these characters, Wanda is a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in Uncanny X-Men #4 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. It's a very good introductory issue, one of the better early Silver Age Uncanny X-Men issues, and basically Magneto, he rescues them, and then they feel, Pietro and Wanda feel, sort of a debt to him to help his cause in terms of fighting for mutants. But they overcome this somewhat quickly, in Marvel time at least, by the point that, or at least to the point that in Avengers number 16, Wanda and Pietro, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, join the Avengers, where Wanda will remain for a good long time. So Scarlet Witch, again, starts off as sort of a villain in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They quickly have a crisis of conscience about this and ultimately join the Avengers in a tradition of going from villainy to heroism that suits characters like Hawkeye and Black Widow, who follow a similar trajectory in Marvel Comics history as well. Wanda, as an Avenger, there's moments in the 70s, like this panel I have up here, where Sentinels hunt her down and very much assert that she is a mutant. So we're talking, again, is Scarlet Witch a mutant? in the 60s and 70s, every indication is that she is. Of course, she's in a membership drive called Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and Sentinels are also suggesting or determining, seemingly, that she is a mutant here as well, as we have in this kind of early 70s Avengers book. So, given all of that, why is this even a question, right? Why are we even talking about this? Let's get into it a little bit more. And then I guess before I do that even, I will say as well, throughout the 70s, what's going on with the Scarlet Witch? Well, she's developing a romance with the Vision, here recaptured very, very nicely in the Vision Maxi series by Tom King and Gabriel Hernandez Walta. This is from Vision number 7, which I had forgotten is like one of the absolute best Scarlet Witch and Vision comics that have ever been created. It's very, very good. So she's developing a romance and ultimately a marriage with the Vision, but she's also got here a very, very complicated history during this time. We get a lot of developments about her heritage and her origins, her origins, excuse me. We don't get a ton about the oranges that she is bewitched, but perhaps that is to come. We find out that all of these elements, Robert Frank, the Wizard, originally comes in and says he's the father of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. You have Bova, the bovine high evolutionary caretaker, who in Avengers 185 to 187, it is revealed that the high evolutionary has a role in the childhood of the Maximoffs. You have Agatha Harkness, the witch who teaches her to control chaos magic. You, of course, have her brother, Pietro, from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, who has the connection, of course, to their perceived father, eventually, Magneto, who comes in the pages of Vision and Scarlet Witch, an 80s miniseries, and says that actually your dad is Magneto, okay? So it's a very complicated origin, and I think in a lot of ways it's one of those things where I'm looking at it and saying, does it matter? So when it starts to change is in 2014 during the Axis event, or build up to the Axis event in the pages of Magneto. It's revealed that Magneto is not actually the Scarlet Witch's and Quicksilver's father. It's revealed because Scarlet Witch casts a hex when she's been sort of inverted to villainy to attack anyone of her blood specifically, and it doesn't have any effect on Magneto. So it's revealed that he is not Scarlet Witch's actual dad. So if Magneto is not the father of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, there is all of a sudden the potential that they are not even mutants. This doesn't really make necessarily a ton of sense with the entire continuity of Marvel, but that's what happens here in 2015 is we get the reveal that, okay, we don't actually know who her dad is, and he might not have been a mutant. Now, this is the 2015 series, Uncanny Avengers. It's a 5-issue reboot of the series written by Rick Remender with art here by Daniel Acuna, and it's a follow-up to the previous Uncanny Avengers run that Remender wrote from about 2012 to 2014. And in this series, Scarlet Witch and Pietro, but Scarlet Witch especially, goes on a hunt to discover, okay, Magneto's not her dad. What does this tell us? And they go to Counter-Earth, the planet and kind of home of the High Evolutionary, to discover up some secrets of their origins, and they learn from the High Evolutionary, as he states here, the fraternal twins, they masquerade as mutants. Now, this is the first time, and the first instance, where we get the suggestion that Wanda is not actually a mutant, right? Some confirmation here, or seeming confirmation, from the High Evolutionary. He goes on to reveal to both Wanda and Quicksilver that you're our father. No, don't be ridiculous. Nonetheless, he says basically he took the twins from the Maximoffs, from Django and Maria Maximoff. So, and you'll find throughout like Wanda and Pietro's, okay, who are their parents stories, Marvel writers have to do this insane game of Twister, trying to connect all the dots of the different parentages that have been revealed over the years, and it Remender's doing it here in Uncanny, saying, okay, you know that story about the individuals in Wundagore who raised you? Yes, I took you from them, or I took you to them after I had made genetic modifications that give you your powers. So Quicksilver pretty quickly says he's lying, it's half truth and mixed direction, but Wanda seems to buy into the High Evolutionary statements that basically he created them. He made them who they are, not, some sort of mutant gene. And honestly, this isn't too far removed from potentially what we've seen like this segment in the pages of 70s Avengers, where the twins, Wanda and Pietro, are actually taken to the care of the High Evolutionary in Wundagore Mountain. So there's not necessarily a lot of continuity questioning here. that they were actually, involved with the High Evolutionary. The question is simply, are their power sets entirely based on his work? Okay, why does this matter, right? And I think we're going to see a panel here where Quicksilver asks a very similar question. Why is this important? I think it matters to a degree because of the language used in House of X, calling her a pretender. Wanda as a character has taken action throughout the Marvel Universe history that are very damaging to Avengers and to mutants in particular. She is a hero without question when she is, I think, not possessed by a demon or not going through a nervous breakdown over the loss of her children. Are some of the stories that have been told and the ways that she have been written. Wanda has sort of melted down and become a danger more than really any character this side of Dark Phoenix. It happens a lot. And the most notable example here that I've got up is Pietro talking about the events of House of X, where he sort of manipulated, pushed Wanda into the No More Mutants declaration. That is, of course, leads to the decimation that mutants are saying now in House of X, look what they've done. And Wanda gets tossed in there as, the second leading villain, essentially, for taking out so many mutants. And I think it matters because there's an understanding from 2005 to 2015 that she was of mutant kind, that it was something that she did to her own mutant kind. And then when you take that away, now she is a human Avenger doing it to mutant kind, and that's why you get the reframing, the recontextualization of look what they've done. Not look at what one of us has done, but look what they've done. And I think that's kind of interesting framing for the Scarlet Witch. I honestly think it makes her even more villainous because, again, it's like she doesn't really have the fallback of, also being a mutant. And, here's just an example of Scarlet Witch being possessed by the demon Chthon. This happens both in Avengers 185 to 187 and in Secret Empire in 2017. That's how she becomes one of Hydra Cap's, demoness Avengers. To the point, she's done these things to the point that when Wanda is found in the pages of the 2000s Avengers Children's Crusade, Logan's instinct, Wolverine's instinct, is he's going to kill her. And that this is the right, and he's saying this to the Avengers, that this is the right thing to do. And obviously they have their sorts of blow-ups, but, this is the kind of the X-Men's attitude towards Scarlet Witch back when they thought she was still a mutant. We also get in the pages of Children's Crusade. It's not necessarily super pertinent to this conversation around whether or not she's a mutant, but Scarlet Witch does have reincarnated humans. The story of Wanda's children is baffling and kind of wild. She creates them by chaos magic, then realizes they aren't real. Then they are reincarnated in the boys of teenagers who are also young Avengers. Her life has been complicated. I think we can grant Wanda that. But we also get in the pages of Uncanny Avengers, Rogue and Wanda constantly going at it, and Rogue really holding Wanda accountable. She says here, you're ashamed of what you are. Maybe you do think things would be better if there were no more mutants. This entire debate and argument takes on a new lens and comes in a new light when you consider the fact that Wanda might not actually be a mutant. Now, I would not personally make the case that she knew she wasn't a mutant. And I think that does make a difference. I think Wanda sincerely believed Magneto was her father and that she was a mutant along with Pietro for a good long while until the High Evolutionary convinced them all otherwise, So I do think that is somewhat in Wanda's favor. But again, let's finalize this here. Is she a mutant? So everything seems to be bending towards the 2015 reveal, which I think a lot of people would say, and has been discussed as such, that it was motivated in many ways because Marvel did not have the rights to the X-Men at the time, and that the MCU wanted to use Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, so it was kind of a spiteful corporate mandated move to take the mutant part of their background out of the equation. This is, of course, why we get Quicksilver in both Age of Ultron and the X-Men franchise in the 2010s, is because the character kind of falls into both camps. So you have Marvel maybe, potentially, pretty visibly making a move so that they're no longer mutants. But again, why am I still asking the question then? If she's a pretender, is there any doubt? And I kind of think that there is, honestly. I don't know that we can necessarily take it at face value that Wanda's not a mutant. here we have a conversation, and a lot of this comes from the 2016, not a lot of it, really all of the rest of the information we have comes from the 2016 solo series written by James Robinson with a new artist just about every issue. It's a really underrated series from the time that I quite enjoyed going back and checking out for this piece, and it's definitely one of the best Scarlet Witch, stories that you can read if you're a fan of Wanda and her character. As she goes on a quest to basically she's doing like individual witchcraft stories. She's like a witch detective, kind of figuring out like magical incidents across the globe, and she's also investigating the history of her parentage. Now, Quicksilver makes a point here, and a very pointed conversation that the two have really about their entire history, that Magneto and Magna Lencher, Django and Wanda Maximoff, the Wizard and Miss America, they've all been in various Marvel comics that we've talked about to some degree here, are parents at one point or another. Like, what does it even matter now? And I think the biggest reason it kind of matters is if you care about the idea of Wanda as a pretender, of a mutant. And in the pages, again, of this Scarlet Witch series, we get a lot of conversation around, okay, what is the actual origin? What is the actual parentage of Wanda with this new high evolutionary information? And basically what Wanda finds out is that the high evolutionary, yes, he took them. Yes, he gave them to Django and Wanda Maximoff. And the new piece of information, or one thing to even talk about before that point, is, okay, the high evolutionary did genetic modifications on Wanda and Pietro. But the psychiatrist she's speaking to, who ultimately is revealed to be someone else, it's a pretty good issue. But he says, he genetically modified you to wield chaos magic? That doesn't seem like something someone can do. And Wanda has put in effort here. So kind of the 2016 series is sort of making a case that Wanda is maybe just a witch and maybe always has been, whatever that means here. I think here it means, she can wield chaos magics. Now, would that make her a mutant in order to wield these, or would that make her sort of a sorceress? I think that can be up for debate. The big reveal of the 2016 series is that her mother was a woman, Natalia Maximoff, who was a family member of the Maximoffs who the Wanda and Pietro thought raised them, and that she was actually the original Scarlet Witch. So it puts in a degree of legacy and magic at the heart of this character that predates the High Evolutionary. And I think what this does for me, potentially, is it casts into doubt, why are we trusting the High Evolutionary to tell the full story? Why are we trusting him to be telling the full truth here? I think taking that at face value is a mistake, and that, to me, opens the door to, we still don't know who Wanda's dad is. Now, even if it's not Magneto, I'll scroll back here before I end on the Vision joke. Even if it's not Magneto, the 2016 series ends at issue 15, and we still don't know who Wanda Maximoff's dad actually is. There is still the potential that she is the daughter of this witch, the original Scarlet Witch from way back when, and that her dad could potentially have granted her the mutant gene. Now, given the fact that House of X calls her a pretender, given the fact that it's laying her out as a Marvel mutant villain, essentially, with these actions that she has taken, whether in her control of her own faculties or not. I mean, Avengers Children Crusade in the 2000s goes to some lengths to basically argue, actually, it was Dr. Doom coercing Wanda into the actions that she had taken in the pages of both Avengers Disassembled and then ultimately House of M. Basically, that she was sort of manipulated in much the same way that I think Jean Grey's actions as Dark Phoenix get walked back a bit because we like Jean Grey. We like her as a hero, and we walk back saying, no, she was possessed by the Phoenix. She was not in her right faculties. Avengers Children's Crusade does somewhat similar things with Wanda so that, the character can potentially be redeemed because she has done these horrible things that she has to live with now. But even so, we don't know who her dad is. Still. So is Scarlet Witch a mutant? Every indication that she is not. I mean, every indication. It may or may not matter depending on your perspective. But if you like Wanda Maximoff, if you like the Scarlet Witch, it kind of does matter. And I think one question I've been asking is, could she still be a mutant? Sure. Is it better if she is? I don't know. I mean, the character has typically played as an Avenger. She has played outside of the world of X-Men, despite the fact that she starts there as a villain in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, she has not really hung out with mutant kind much at all. Now, she is sort of a mutant representative in the Avengers, which I think is something that is important. But even when Wanda and Quicksilver are there are brief moments of them dealing with sort of the prejudice that comes with being mutants in the Marvel Universe. But mostly, they're able to pass as sort of human Avengers. They don't specifically deal with a lot of mutant problems. That just hasn't been a huge part of their past. So, is Scarlet Witch a mutant? I think canonically, right now, the answer is technically no, as far as we know. We don't know who her dad is, and we don't know if the High Evolutionary was telling the truth. So I think this thing got a lot of attention at the time because of the corporate mandate and because of the fact that it seemed like it's, Disney and Fox clashing, even though now they've come together and have the rights. And the fact that they have come together makes me wonder, could this get walked back yet again? And if we want to get Wanda in these X-Men movies to come, presumably, now as a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, could there be an on-ramp to do that? Do we have it revealed that she is ultimately a mutant? There's a connection there. So, time will tell, of course. I am way more open to the idea of her potentially being a mutant than I think we've been led to believe in the pages of comics and in online discourse around the character. Nonetheless, she is, of course, being villainized and really held accountable for her crimes of decimation in the pages of House of X. It'll be interesting to see if she comes into play in the Dawn of X in the series. And I've got on the screen here, as a final note, everybody should read Vision number 7 as a tale of the Vision and Scarlet Witch. This is, you can't quite read it, probably it's too small, but the Vision tells Wanda a joke about toasters, and it's awesome, and the whole issue is amazing. So, there you have it. That's my take on Is Scarlet Witch a Mutant? That was all prompted by one data chart in House of X, which I think speaks to how much fun I'm having with this series and really exploring the nuances and details and really every element of the Marvel Universe. Of course, if you want to find more about the Scarlet Witch or House of X or comics in general in the Marvel Universe, you can go on over to comicbookherald.com. I'll include links in the show notes. As always, please consider liking and subscribing if you like the content and the conversation here. Leave a comment if you have thoughts of your own as to whether or not Wanda should be a mutant in the Marvel Universe, or if it even matters to you. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to be back, I think, next time. We're going to go into the secret history of Apocalypse. So subscribe to the channel if you want to follow more of Krakin Krakoa as I go into House of X. I'll also be doing a bunch of Road 2s, I think, coming up here. I've got a Road to Marvel 2099, the event that is crossing over here in December. There's going to be some Road to Annihilation Scourge, a Marvel event, and Road to Incoming as we get more information about that as well. So a lot in the pipeline here. And of course, as always, the reading orders and content going up on comicbookherald.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And as always, enjoy the comics.